run in September through a pandemic, which was just, again, a remarkable accomplishment. They will have an extra burden in the new year of dealing with the outfitting and programming of our new high school, which is 12 months away from opening the doors, and all of that technology stuff still has to be thought of and purchased. So hats off to both of those groups. The other groups that come in, food service and transportation, are going to be relieved to not be scrambling daily. I can't tell you how difficult it was to have weekly quarantines or school closings for our transportation department through the past year and have to react to that from a resource perspective. And food service going from a normal school lunch operation to free meals, and what that means in terms of your infrastructure costs vis-a-vis the lack of revenues that are coming in, just extraordinary work all around to accommodate all of those kind of drastic and sudden changes. I do, for the committee's consideration, have two motions. One is for the approval of the FY22 budget. This one's a little tricky, and I apologize for that. But what we'd ask is that you approve an $83,987,640.72 budget for FY22.
Can you give me the number one more time?
Sure. $83,987,640.72.
Thank you.
That includes $1,179,663 in ESSER 2 funds, and will also include about $1.3 million in what is generically called carryover funds from 22.
Is this, well, all right, first I'll entertain a motion to approve fiscal year 22 budget in the amount of $83,887,640.72.
So moved.
Second.
Is this number the number the committee approved to put forward to the city a month or so back?
Yes, sir.
So there's no change to that?
No change.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Domenici?
Yeah, first off, I mean, just very quickly, Mark, I mean, we've all echoed, just the job that your whole department has done all year, and it's really been appreciated to get us to the finish line. My quick question with regards to the budget, I didn't know whether to ask Ms. Regan or yourself, but the first question is, now that we have online registration, is it open for the coming school year? And if so, do we have an indication of how enrollments are looking, particularly for kindergarten? Knowing that I'm asking because our numbers were down, which caused state funding to be down. So obviously we all have a concern that those numbers, as we expect, come back up. Maybe it's too early to know, but I'm hoping that there might be an indicator.
Right now for kindergarten, we have about 340 students registered. That's,
340?
340. So we usually, by the end of the summer, we open up with about 400 students. So we're hopeful that through the summer, we'll continue to advertise that registration is open, has been open for months, and anyone can register their child for any grade, including kindergarten.
How does that 340 number compare to comparable time periods in the years past?
It's a little bit lower than it normally is, but I'm assuming that families will register in the summer and we'll catch up.
Any other questions for Mr. Furtado? The only other question I have on the budget, because we've already discussed and asked about the specifics of the number before when we approved it. What does this still include as far as estimates or guesses as to what we're getting from the state? Is that still up in the air?
No. I think the Chapter 70 funding, the fundamental state support for schools is pretty solid and final. There's still discussion about support for schools who were severely impacted by enrollment. We haven't seen anything on that in terms of what that would possibly mean for the city of Attleboro. We have been in contact with our state representatives and state senators, but nothing has come about of that. The other big question mark still out there has to do with food service, because districts across the Commonwealth all suffered pretty significantly in terms of their food service operation and requirements during the pandemic. But again, no indication yet as to if there's any additional funds for that.
Anything else? All right, so we have a motion that's been seconded to approve the fiscal year 22 budget of $83,987,640.72. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you. My second motion has to do with food service. As this body knows, we are required to bring the contract to the state of Massachusetts first, have them approve the construction of the contract, have it executed by the vendor, and then brought to the committee for your approval, which we have done. We got the state approval last week. I believe it was on Wednesday. So it is before you now to exercise the second one-year option of our contract with Whitson's, and what that means is we will be going out for a food service bid in the spring.
So I'll entertain a motion to exercise the second one-year option for the Whitson's food service agreement commencing on July 1st, 2021, ending on June 30th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Any questions for Mr. Furtado or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Mr. Furtado on other issues? Mr. Geddes?
Yep, very quick transportation question. In typical years, transportation fees were due in the summer. Last year, with all the uncertainty, that timeline got pushed back to October. For next year, I know we got some, towards the end of the school year, we got a fee-for-service item sent home. The timeline is the same for payments as it was this past year, so payments are not due until October.
I'm glad you brought that up. So registration is required so that we know to get a seat for a student. So that whole registration process timeline hasn't changed, but payments for the seat are, again, not required until the beginning of October.
So because I had someone reach out to me that what was on the website, what was in the flyer, and what was when they tried to go to the transportation office, like it was all either this year or previous year, or when they tried to call, the voicemail had a different year, so there was some conflicting information.
The website's current
Okay.
as we sit here now.
Okay. So the website's the most reliable spot
Yeah.
for those details.
Sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Furtado or the administration? And then I'll echo what you all said in thanking the staff throughout the district, throughout what's been a unprecedented and incredibly difficult year, and just add a thanks to the five of you and our other administrators for yeoman's work through really impossible circumstances and expectations. And it hasn't always been smooth, but it certainly hasn't been, the fault of any of you. And I think you've done an exceptional job. So kudos and thank you for steering the ship through what's been a tumultuous ride. So thanks. And look forward to a more normal year coming up. Anything further from you, Mr. Sawyer?
That concludes my report.
Next on our agenda, we have our minutes from our June 7th, 2021 meeting. The minutes were circulated with your packet. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, corrections, edits? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Consent agenda. I'm going to take lesson learned through COVID and read them all together, and then we'll vote on them as a package. So we have a motion to accept a donation in the amount of $268.25 from the Bliss fundraiser in 2030 for the 2030 project at the high school. A motion to accept a donation in the amount of $1,500 from the Attleboro Badgers to the baseball team. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $50 from Target to Attleboro High School. Motion to approve a donation in the amount of $125.15 from the Rebecca Lynn Whitefield Foundation to the Attleboro High School. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $15,000 from the Studley PTO for deposit into the Studley Gifts and Donations account. Motion to accept a payment of $7.75 from Bay State Textiles to Hill Roberts. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $1,500 from the Feinstein Foundation to Hill Roberts Gifts Donation Line. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $1,000 from the Feinstein Foundation to Wamsutta Middle School. and motion to declare the following obsolete academic materials as surplus: approximately 90 2008 Reading Street kits that have no value.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Geddes.
I just want to say, I don't have any hard numbers, but with all of the community partnerships, with everything that we've discussed as how awful this past year was, the fact that our community partners are still supporting the schools with a lot of these donations, including still another $15,000 from one of our PTOs, it's fantastic to see the community supporting the schools like this, even during a difficult year. So thank you to our community partners.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we have one subcommittee meeting report tonight, and that's teaching and learning. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The following is my report of the Teaching and Learning Subcommittee meeting held on June 15th, 2021. I would like to begin with the single district virtual school application. As we have discussed in recent meetings, the Attleboro Public Schools plans to continue the Attleboro Virtual Academy, or AVA, as a permanent school within our district for grades 9 through 12, commencing in the 2021-2022 school year. Ms. Regan and Mr. Sawyer have been leading the team in completing the application with the state, so thanks to you and your team for the hard work in making that happen. Just a couple highlights about the structure of the AVA. Once again, the enrollment is going to be open to Attleboro students in grades 9 through 12 who would like to participate in a remote option for school. The current enrollment projection is 60 to 100 students attending the AVA, and this number does include families that have already indicated an interest. The schedule has been constructed to meet the required 990 hours and 180-day state requirement. A typical day is going to run from 7:30 a.m. to 2:10 p.m., and it's going to include a daily check-in, followed by small or large group instruction, independent work, and an advisory period. Depending on the students' individual needs, they may have more small group instruction or sessions or individualized one-on-one sessions. There will also be an ESL teacher and special education teacher available through the AVA. All students would be provided with a Chromebook and, if needed, a hotspot for internet access. And although the AVA will be a fully remote school, there will be opportunities to build culture within the AVA through both virtual and in-person events for AVA students and their families. Now, in order for the AVA to open for the 2021 school year, 21-22 school year, we will need to take a formal vote to approve the AVA. However, before I make that motion, I do want to acknowledge that the administration has already announced Mr. Joe Connor as the first principal of the AVA, and we recognize that his previous experience in Attleboro as an educator, as a dean, and as an administrator has thoroughly prepared him for this position. Mr. Connor, I see you're here tonight. Would you like to share a few words?
Well, thank you. I think first I'd like to thank, led by Ms. Regan, and also at the secondary level, Ms. Nicole Lane, and at the elementary level, Ms. Gabrielle Atkinson. They did a tremendous amount of work this year trying to put together something in very short order for 1,200 students who needed a remote option this year. So thanks to them for laying the groundwork. I certainly have something to build on in terms of what worked well for kids and what did not. So thankfully I don't have to start from scratch on this. There's a lot to be done. I'm just getting on board now. I've been working with Ms. Regan on the state's feedback to the original application, so I'm on board with that. I've been working with Mr. Sawyer and Ms. Regan on the schedule, and the application is going to be going home via email and Facebook tomorrow to families, so we'll get a better sense of who the students are going to be, and I can start meeting students and designing schedules for them. And although it's in its early stages, I'm fully confident that for kids who need it, the AVA will provide a quality educational option for those students on par with what is offered at Attleboro High School.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I'd like to bring forward a motion to approve the Attleboro Virtual Academy plan and operate the AVA commencing during the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Because I've gotten this question from several people, I just like to ask it.
Sure.
What are, now that hopefully the coronavirus and COVID-19 is behind us, who are the students, who are the type of students that will be participating in the ABA, and what will the requirements be?
Ms. Regan, Mr. Connor?
Yeah, sure. So technically, any student that would be able to apply for it, but students who have different learning profiles that may not, they may not feel comfortable in a traditional school setting, in a traditional brick and mortar school, and, okay. Any student is eligible to apply for the school, but we are focusing on students who may not feel comfortable in a traditional brick and mortar school setting and feel like they can be more successful in a remote environment.
Thank you.
Mr. Geddes?
Thank you. There was talk pre-COVID about adjusting schedules for the high school and elementary schools. If the administration decides to try to implement that change, would that, I'm assuming that would be implemented with AVA as well? Or
I'm
to
sure
be determined?
it's to be determined. We'll bring that up when we have that larger discussion. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Storrs.
Could you just, I know we talked about it during the subcommittee, but just for the public, can you explain the teaching support, how teachers who are at the high school will be doing split days, some will be doing split days between the in-person learning at the high school and with the ABA? Could you touch on that a little?
Sure, yeah. Attleboro High School teacher, certified APS teacher, will have blocks within their school day that will be assigned to students within the Attleboro Virtual Academy for whatever subject area or content area that they teach. And those students will be able to meet with that teacher at the start of each period. From there, they'll be able to meet either in small groups with that teacher or in large groups, depending on the need and depending on where they are within the online curriculum. And they'll have one period that they meet with each throughout the course of the day and throughout the course of the week. And if they need more supports, then we'll be able to figure that out as well.
Any other questions?
Not a question, just more of a welcome since you're here, Mr. Connor. Congratulations. We know you will be very effective. I'm a huge proponent of the ABA, so I'm glad to see that that we picked somebody like yourself to start this off. We look forward to meeting with you throughout the next school year to see how progress is going, and obviously to offer any support you may need.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Lyson?
Mr. Connor, I just wanted to say thank you. I've known you back when you were here at Brennan and at the Attleboro High School, and I think you're a great pick for the position, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens.
Thank you, Mr. Larson.
Other questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
And all opposed? Okay, the motion passes. And as, if I just take a moment, as a Wamsutta family, we are so sad to see you go. You did a lot of great work at Wamsutta, but we're very excited that you'll be leading the ABA. It's, honestly think it's a good fit, and it's going to be a great addition for the district as a whole.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
You're welcome. Good luck. Okay. Also discussed at our subcommittee meeting was the potential for an early college program. Ms. Regan announced to the subcommittee that the administration has begun to explore the possibility of offering an early college program for Attleboro High School students. The early college program will likely consist of a consortium of neighboring districts and colleges, including possibly UMass Dartmouth, William James College, the Boston Architectural College. This early college program would offer a curriculum designed with college-level content for qualifying students, and this will enable students to graduate from Attleboro High School with both a high school diploma and college credits. Now, this program would not be the same as AP classes. It would be in addition to the AP classes. And again, I just want to take a moment to emphasize that this is in the very early exploratory phases. but it's definitely something that's very, very exciting. The administration is still gathering information about costs, logistics, best practices. Is this going to be a right fit for our school community? So again, it's easy to see the value and potential benefits of the early college program. And again, we'd like to thank the administration for continuing their work of seeking out opportunities to engage, challenge, and inspire as students. And we look forward to future updates on this program. Also at our meeting, we had a guest, Mr. Gorman. He had been at our prior subcommittee meeting to give us an update on the anticipated high school schedule for the opening of the new building in the 2022-2023 school year. Back in April, much of the schedule is still a work in progress, so the committee invited Mr. Gorman to come back to the June meeting to share progress on the parts of the schedule that were still a work in progress. Things to note is that the layout of the new building obviously is very different. The efficiency and design is not limited just to our LEED certified energy efficient facilities, which save us a lot of money on energy costs, but also our learning environments and our traffic flow. This efficiency and design is providing an opportunity to build efficiency into our daily and weekly schedule for this building and for our high school community. And as has become standard practice in the past few years since we adopted our mission and vision statement, this decision is not going to be made in a silo. There was a focus group of multiple stakeholders, including students and families and staff, and it was important to see what was most important to these stakeholders so the schedule could be built with their input in mind. Some key feedback from all stakeholders included the need and the request for experiential real-world learning, project-based learning, flexibility and consistency. Relationship building was very important to the group, and students especially voiced that they wanted to be active participants in their learning. Some of the highlights of the new schedule will include longer blocks to allow for more time for labs and in-depth learning. There's going to be a block of time used for advisory and study and tutoring. And the flexible weekly schedule is going to allow us to maximize learning during the weeks with school holidays, which is great. And most importantly, this schedule is going to meet the requirements of the 990 hours plus 180 days of learning per school year. There's going to be more to come, and Mr. Gorman will be presenting to the full committee in the near future the final draft of this proposed high school schedule. And I just wanted to send a thank you out to him and his team and the many hours of thoughtful work by the administration and the many stakeholders. And the last thing I'd like to report is that the LPAC meetings, the English Learners Parent Advisory Council meetings, were successfully continued throughout the pandemic year. Initially, they were in a remote model, and this model will eventually move back into an in-person model as the schools reopen to students in the fall. Initially, attendance was light at the beginning of the remote meetings, but it consistently increased, and a lot of good work occurred during these meetings with the families, with administration, and a big thanks to the interpreters that came to help facilitate the meetings. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Johnson. That concludes our subcommittee reports. Next on our agenda is open forum. This is the time when members of the public may address the school committee. Open forum is not a time for committee members to engage in dialogue with members of the public. Guidelines for open forum are available to you. Please know that we're interested in what you may have to say, but we cannot respond without background information on your issue. If you would like to address the school committee tonight at open forum, please come forward and state your name and address.
How you doing? My
Hello.
name is Brian Fortin. Now I'll adjust this. Obviously, you've kind of covered some of this stuff earlier on. But I did write it, so I figure I'll read it, and you can take it for what it is. Obviously, this is a contentious topic, and I may, basically what I'm trying to do is I'll bring up some things might be contentious, but let me just flow to where I'm going with it. You'll be able to tell which side of the fence I'm on, obviously, right? But at the same rate, at the end, I'll propose a couple questions that perhaps would allow for implementing a portion or some sort of version of CRT along with the DEI that's already in place. Does this even work?
I believe that is actually for it's for the television. Yeah, it's
online.
not projected.
All right. And I'll talk loud because I'm military. So. Greetings, fellow Attleboro residents and school board staff. As some of you may know, and most of you may not, my name is Brian Fortin. Initially, I wanted to come here and flex my conservative values, as many other parents have done in other cities nationwide about CRT. And initially I said DEI, but obviously that's more like military training that we receive or any employer gives out. So I'll just kind of omit that. And I could easily stand up here and start yelling like we've seen on TV and through the media outlets. I know most of you are likely, varying political positions as well, because like you said, you have 700 members within the school system that are interacting with the students right now. I think I'll leave all that for other parents that may be here that feel like doing that. Instead, I would like to speak to you from experiences and address some items of concern from different angles. First, I think it prudent that I formally introduce myself. As I said, my name is Brian Fortin. I'm a fourth-generation Attleboro resident and a father of 3 children whom all have attended APS system and are still attending, one of which will graduate this year. I am a war veteran. Cumulatively, my family has owned the same house here in town for over 85 years that my grandfather built with his 2 hands. Subsequently, my family has likely paid more in taxes to this city than many people in this room right now. My wife and I have also sacrificed much for this city, state, and country in service to them through the military. While this is unfortunately not a super relevant fact in modern times, at least projected through current media outlets, I do think that a family with that amount of time, money, and sacrifice for one town holds a unique perspective on watching a city develop, or decay as it may have in recent years. I know Attleboro schools both from the standpoint of a student and as a parent, just as some of you may. I graduated AHS in 2001. My class was indeed diverse. My fellow classmates were of all ethnicities. My first friend in first grade, that some of you may know, was Young Yang. Some of you might know him, some of you might not, but he's still in town. I would like to tell you about our friendship, if I may, because I feel it relevant. Young's family immigrated to the United States after leaving Thailand just after Vietnam. Since that time frame was arguably one of the most likely times for Americans to dislike Asians, I think it is indeed a great reference point from which to start. When Young arrived here, he spoke 0 English. I still remember sitting with him in Finberg School, despite no ability to actually speak to each other. We began our friendship by carrying out our simple tasks assigned by the teachers. I would like to emphasize the fact that never in 12 years of school in the APS system were we instructed on CRT as we know it from the media. And I'm going to put it like that because obviously there is no defined way of teaching it. Lost my place, excuse me. But over the years of receiving proper education from our teachers, we were able to come to common words. While I regret I never learned his language due to its difficulty, we still managed to forge a now almost 34-year friendship. Young comes to our home regularly to forge his relationship with my children. When I do visit his family, I am looked at as part of theirs. while we were instructed alongside the rest of our classmates about Martin Luther King's vision for the future, a vision that I strongly feel would be countered by the current version of CRT that's going around through media. I feel we do not need the instruction on how not to be racists, or that we're somehow benefiting from whiteness or any other type of race. Children inherently do not see race issues. They do see pigment, but not the way we see it. We learn from the mistakes of the past generations without having to relive them. Now, I do remember certain bias by certain students I attended with. I also remember some of my fellow students not wishing to associate with other students of certain races and cultural trend assimilators. I stood as a unifier of friend groups, encouraged them to interact, and over time we all forged strong groups that lasted, unfortunately, only until the last couple of years. Unfortunately, because I am unwilling to spew a lot of the same rhetoric because I am a conservative, they've chosen to oust me from some of the groups, the very same ones that I helped to unify. They wouldn't be friends if I hadn't helped to unify, but because I don't spit the same stuff that the media wants to put out, and let's be frank, that the liberal left wants to put out, I'm no longer a friend to the groups. So I see that as a big problem in this society. Never in my youth did I perpetuate such archaic thinking. And if anybody else wants to get up, I mean, I've got a little bit to go, but good? All right. Yep. Now, you may wish to implement a program that's singular goal is to tell children because they look white that all their future achievements would be based on this fact. And I'm not saying that that's what you're going to do. I'm saying that that's what we're seeing in the news. That's what the worry is on the conservative side. And that's what everybody's getting up in arms in New Hampshire and everywhere else about. Also, that they are somehow responsible for slavery and the inadequacies of the black community to elevate themselves, when in fact it's actually the fault of certain elected officials within those communities to actually help them. My family was never linked to slavery. We came from Canada. They didn't have slavery in Canada. And we have never oppressed anyone. My oldest son is a good portion Choctaw Native American, yet still looks white. So if it's implemented the way that we see in the news, am I supposed to tell my Choctaw Native American son that he is somehow an oppressor because he looks white? In fact, the first time that I even experienced true racism myself was not from a white to a black. It was from a black to me when I was serving in the Air Force. It was from a black fellow service member that was in the barracks yelling at a female soldier, and she didn't enjoy it. So when I chose to intervene, I was met with, now that I know that there's going to be children here, I won't say anything I was going to say, but unkind words. Never did I ever use those words, and I attribute that to the success of education received here that didn't have to involve all of what's going on right now. And I think I'll just skip the rest of that because I think I drove that point home. Our children are clean slates with no oppression or bigotry unless we put it in them. African Americans, Muslims, Indians, Asians, Native Americans, Caucasians, students within this school system are indeed currently equal. Further, due to the progression of advantageous programs, and this is where I think it'll get contentious, because this is my viewpoint on what I see. Due to the progression of advantageous programs for those of color or the female gender, I almost venture to say that the straight white male is becoming the oppressed in this society. And I will explain. A simple search for white scholarships, black scholarships, male scholarships, and female scholarships will drive home the fact that a white male doesn't get special money to go and get an education. Further, another easy YouTube search, and I don't want to make this sound bad, but if you plug in black kids beat up white kids, and then plug in white kids beat up black kids, that is an easy search result to see the racism in this country that does still exist, and I won't say that there isn't racism in this country, but it's an easy way to see that it exists on both sides, and unfortunately the media only wants to project it from one. Something that the military does very well with training. Obviously, they take you in, they erase it, right? They make you work together, basically the same equity and inclusion training that you put out already. And I think I'll skip the rest of that, as basically I drove that point home. My business is located right next to Cumberland Farms in County Square. And this is the good part. Each day, I see children of all races congregating in large groups heading to Dunkin' Donuts or to Cumberland Farms to get whatever snacks they want after school. The large groups consist of a very diverse group. They're not fighting, they're not arguing. Some of them are acting a little crazy, but they look like they're having fun. What I think is, I don't think we have a problem that a lot of the other counties or cities or states currently have in this country. Can we improve? You can always improve. You can always train better. But I don't think we have that problem, because I think we've been training the children of Attleboro to be kind humans. Right there. It's up on the wall. Now, as far as where I'm going with training is, a little bit about my background is obviously I'm military. So I've gotten military leadership over the years, all right? Training for that, flight instruction. I went to Bridgewater State, I achieved a flight instruction degree. I was gonna go off and be an airline pilot until I started my business, right? And from those two trainings, I can derive two questions that before any program related to CRT would need to be answered in full, in detail. The first involves an acronym that we had to memorize as far as for the learning phases, which I'm sure you've already learned, but I'm going to say them here today because they haven't. So the learning phases can be broken down into 4 sections. You have an acronym called RUAC. It's rote, understanding, application, and correlation. All right? That's how students learn. We learn that as flight instructors before we ever step foot in an airplane and risk their lives as well as our own in order to teach them how to fly. All right? Well, I kind of think that has a good relation to this, because this is a very contentious topic that has a lot of risk. All right? So if you're going to implement something like that, I think you should define those three phases of the education very clearly, and how you're going to accomplish each of the 3 phases, and that should be put out to every parent around here. All right? On top of that, then from military training. So in order to accomplish any mission, doesn't matter what it is, you've got three elements, right? And this will go right into the RUAC, right? You have your purpose, your key tasks, and your end state. See, that's the problem with these racial talks. Everybody wants to talk about the purpose. Everybody wants to talk about the key tasks. But where it's lost is, what is the end state? What is it? Where do we call this we're good? I mean, that's really what you have to define if you're going to teach something. If you're going to send them on a mission of learning, you're going to have to define that end state. So like you said, I'm going to sum it up here, I'm going to wrap up. And obviously, you've already said your roles as teachers, and I wouldn't be naive enough to think that after years of training students, you don't know your role. But I'm going to say it anyway, because I know somebody else isn't here is going to say it. So here we go. Your role as teachers is not to instruct our children on race, religion, morality, political mindsets, nor sexual orientations, other than a factual, unbiased account of events. Compassion is a great thing. We are paid to instruct our children on math, and this is where I get a little jabby, but preferably an effective method. That's kind of the running joke. Accurate, unbiased history, non-politically charged science, and how to properly speak and write in all the language courses. Oh, and how to sign their name in cursive, because I had to reemphasize that to my son as he was applying to his first job a few weeks ago. And granted, I can do that too, but I remember signing our names on everything, and I'm sure you do too. Maybe that needs to come back. I remember three great instructors throughout my learning development. Mr. Camaret, whom taught French at AHS, Mr. Bennett, an English teacher at AHS, and a great aviation professor I had at BSU. All three said one thing that stuck. A great instructor educates without students ever knowing their personal views, which you've already said. A lesson I think every educator and citizen right now could learn from. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I hope you make the right choices. It would be a shame for my 85-year family ownership of a house and paying taxes in this town to need to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the committee at open forum? Please come forward and state your name and address.
Keep it short and sweet. My name's Tara Finn, address is 351 South Main Street. And I'm here today to voice my concerns about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the schools. In the April 12th school committee meeting, DEI training for the staff was mentioned briefly at the end. This caught my ear, especially since DEI has been linked to critical race theory. I reached out to my rep to ask if I could know more about the training and was told that the information was not published and was not public. When I expressed my concerns over the understanding of CRT and how it may or may not be being implemented into the schools, I got no response at all. So it's been brought up earlier, and I'm guessing it hasn't been brought to your attention that there was concern previously. I understand that you say that DEI and CRT are not the same, but if you were to do a Venn diagram of the two, there are several crossover points, including restorative justice, social justice development, and understanding implicit bias. DEI, I feel, is damaging to students. The equity portion promotes equal outcome, not equal opportunity. Equity does not equal equality. While my kids thrived this past year learning at home, other students, understandably, needed more assistance and fell behind. In those instances, I observed teachers simply removing work from the students' work queue to get them back up to schedule, rather than working individually. Last year, my student came home from school feeling very frustrated. He said he spent an entire period sitting, crisscross applesauce while the teacher read to him. 12-year-olds. When I asked exactly why this happened, the teacher said the book she felt was important to her curriculum, but not all students could read at grade level, so she was reading it to them. That's extremely frustrating for both the students who are not getting the help that they need, as well as the students that are excelling and are sitting there being read to as if they're at story hour. The diversity and inclusion aspects of DEI are also disturbing. Restorative justice practices, microaggressions, it sounds more like a social justice warrior camp than a place that teaches reading, math, and science. The focus seems to be a little more on activism and a little less on academia. Students are already afraid to speak up or weigh competing ideas for fear of retribution by teachers or even some of their peers. At least one kid that I was talking to over the weekend said that when he was given a list of topics to do a writing assignment on, he didn't pick the one that he felt was important to him or that he believed in. He picked one that was safe so that he wouldn't, quote, rock the boat with his teacher. That kind of censorship is just simply dangerous and it doesn't help anyone learn anything. It's also very frustrating to not have heard of some of this being implemented previously, particularly where I brought it up in April and got no response. To treat parents as if we have no right to know what's being taught to our children is just absurd. We need to start putting our children first. And in my opinion, instead of focusing on the implicit bias and restorative justice, how about we get the kids to read at grade level? Thank you for your time.
Anyone else who would like to address the committee?
Good evening, everyone. I'm the wife. My question is, you all want to push the diversity, equity, inclusion on all of us. When I look around out here and I see diversity, equity, and inclusion, I don't see that on your panel. So how are you going to include that on your school committee panel?
Sure.
I didn't prepare anything. My name is Eric Casellas. I'm here with my daughter.
I'm sorry, sir. Did I catch your
Eric
name?
Casellas. Well, your mics don't work. I'm from Puerto Rico. And in Puerto Rico, we don't have these things. We don't see people like this. It's like, you don't see any of that color, right? I came here with nothing. And I got to where I got by hard work, by putting hard work, not by somebody telling me that I didn't get this opportunity because of my skin or because I didn't work. Like my daughter's here. Like if she doesn't get good grades or if she doesn't put her work in school, it's her doing. It's my doing as a parent. It's my responsibility as a parent to educate her as how you treat others, leaving everything out of it, right? I think the biggest problem in the U.S. is that we remove God from the schools, and now everybody wants a medal. We need a flag on every pole. There should be only 2 flags on that pole: POW, MIA, and the United States flag of America. Anything else shouldn't be in there. And I think you just got the kids all messed up and confused. And I asked him, and we had a daycare before. You talk to kids, like he said, kids don't see any of that nonsense. And it's crazy that you guys are talking this. Like she said, the first time I heard it from my pastor. I'm like, you gotta go because these people are crazy. They're implementing things without, and the parents don't know what's going on. And what's the point? What does that have to do with any of the education that these kids should be learning? I'm this point, we're this close to removing our kids. We have 3 daughters too in the Attleboro High School. One graduated fine. She's brown like me. She's in URI, about to finish senior at a PA. She has no issues. There's a line between you guys becoming parents or activists or trying to adjust to every norm. It's like the pastors that adjust Bible verses according to the times. Oh no, that's not what Matthew meant. That's not what, we can't do that stuff. And I would hate to remove my daughters from the school system, but if I see that it's heading the way it's heading, it's like the U.S. And I say this every day and it's sad because I came to the U.S. with a lot of hope And I've been given so much opportunity by anybody, because I think anybody that gave me a shot, I didn't even look at the skin. They gave me a shot, I took a job, I did my work hard, and I'm here, and I've been successful, and thank God for Jesus for that. But the U.S. is, we're destroying this country, man. It's just really messed up. And as an adults, we're responsible for teaching our kids proper values, whatever it is. I don't want to get into religion and stuff because that's a whole other thing. But not being able to, having to explain to my kid why she needs to worry about her skin color, or why she didn't pass her class because it's not that. She didn't pass her class because she was lazy and she needs to put her work in there. It's not the teacher's responsibility. The teacher's responsibility is, like he said, to teach your job, do what you're supposed to do, forget about all that Biden, Trump, and all the BML, all that nonsense. That has no place in our school. If you want to bring something that matters, bring Jesus into the church. Other than that, I think that's it, because it's just crazy. You guys need to figure something out. And figure it out.
Thank you. If you could please state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Neil Halecki. I'm from Canadian Geese Road, Attleboro. So you mentioned enrollment was down, and I just had a quick question about that. We actually pulled our students last year and homeschooled based on the COVID restrictions and the rules in the classroom with masks and social distancing and everything. And with all the new data available, with children being statistically zero risk of any effects of COVID, and with the staff and faculty having had the opportunity to be vaccinated if they wanted, I was just wondering if the board could at this time give us any assurance that masks will not be required in this coming school year.
What's that? Why don't you answer? Because I didn't.
Sure. The state, this is not even a local decision, the state has told us we will not be masked come September.
No masks in September. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Portia Gray Goffigan, and I live at 36 Hannish Road here in Attleboro.
Sorry, Portia, I'm just going to say, so that microphone, it's not to project to the room. It's actually for viewers watching at home. So if you could just speak up a little bit, I would
a little more.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
Again, I'm Portia Gray Goffigan. I live at 36 Hannish Road here in Attleboro. I'm also the president of the family unit of the Attleboro Housing Authority. So I work with a lot of different races and ethnicities here in the city of Attleboro as an advocate, as well as living here. I have 4 children. They've all graduated from the Attleboro High School, and I have grandchildren now here in Attleboro. I would like to thank the school committee for allowing DEA into the school system because my children range in age. My oldest is 38 and my youngest is 26. So I've been through a lot of teachers here throughout from kindergarten, preschool, through the different schools, and through the high school, quite a few principals. I've had quite a few incidences that I've dealt with myself with racism, cultural differences, just quite a few things that I've seen the school. I think they've done the best they could with whoever the superintendent was, whoever the principal was of the school, parents that I've called myself trying to deal with the issue because they're children. And I would like to say that I think the school is making a good run at trying to deal with what they now are acknowledging are issues because they no longer can be quiet with what is going on under the roof of the buildings of the schools. I saw on Facebook myself the other day CRT. I did not know what CRT was, but I'm very interested because I love to learn. And I'm interested in what may hurt my fellow man or other children. So although CRT you may not think it specifically affects me because I'm a person of color, I will tell you it does, because anything that affects a child should affect another adult who may have to step in to protect a child. I'm that type of person, so it concerns me. It concerned me, and I got into the dialogue immediately. So I am thankful for the school. I also got involved in Be Heard, that the school first came up with the idea to get involved with what adults and the school found out was going on under the roof. Diversity, equity, and what's the other? Inclusion. So I would just ask everyone, if as a person who also lives in Attleboro, not only a person of color, but a female, a person who has been here for double-digit years, if I could just ask is that people would just be a little patient with the school and just slow down the anxiousness of what the school is bringing into your home, and just do a little, like I said, a little learning on what's going on, because it's more than just a race thing. It's also the diversity and the inclusion, because we have other things going on in the high school. We have bullying that they did a lot of research of what was really going on. Like, our children don't come home and share with us everything that goes on in their day, because they're mini adults and they handle a lot of things up here. And so we found out a lot of things that they weren't telling teachers and they weren't telling their parents. And we found out a lot of things that needed to be dealt with. So it's not only about race. If we could just wait and find out, even by asking your children, what else goes on with friends, as this gentleman shared, that he was participating in that the friends weren't, and then the friends put him out because he wasn't sticking with them. There's a lot of stuff that's going on that this group is working on. And then if we could just have a little patience on what they're doing, and let's learn from them what part they've already explained, actually, that they're going to be using in what they are bringing in. And also, I learned a lot as a person of color. Let me tell you, as a person of color, I learned a lot during Black Lives Matter that I did not know about. As a person of color, that I did not know about Black history. I did not know. So imagine me, a person of color, learning a lot of history of my own culture. So if you could just be patient as a person, as a Caucasian person, imagine how much of my history you don't know. I'm just saying, just imagine. I don't know. So if we're not so sensitive of what someone's trying to take from us, and we all can learn with them who are leading us, we might just progress the city that you're 4 generations deep in. And if that's going to get you 4 more generations progressively, and those tax dollars that you've already invested, isn't that what you want for your children? And my grandbabies, right? Right? So I was getting a little nervous back there. Like, wait a minute, I'm seeing more division. And that made me nervous. And I know that's not what I've seen them working towards. That's not the way they're going, because I was in on it with them.
I was nearly.
So, I apologize for breaking in. No, it's okay. It's so this is for statements to the school committee as to, concerns, complaints, things you want us to do. It's not, while dialogue in the community is obviously important, especially over an issue like this, the rule specifically on this specific type of forum is for, conversations
I got a little nervous.
That's okay. You're doing a great job. I don't want to step on your toes, or you have every right to speak and say what you want, but it's just not for.
School committee, but I wanted to stick up for school committee. Like, wait a minute.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
No, you have nothing to apologize.
But I did want to say that's not what was happening.
Yeah.
Like, no. They're trying to move us in a good direction, and they want us to go singing Kumbaya. I don't know if we're gonna do Kumbaya, but they do want us to hold hands and get it done, and they want us to shine while we do it. They want Attleboro schools to come up in the numbers and shine when we do it. It's not a division thing.
Yep.
Am I right?
Yes. Thank you.
And I want
Hi, my name's Joey. I have 4 biracial kids. We live in Attleboro. 2 of those schools I pulled out of the Attleboro district and sent them over to Norton using school choice. That was because the education department was failing my 2 daughters. They weren't able to decipher why they were not able to read. When I sent them to Norton, they figured out the situation. But just like Attleboro, Norton is now also going through this whole wokeness disease that is doing nothing good for our kids. It is only dividing them. It is separating them. It is teaching them to hate one another as well as themselves. This idea that critical race theory there is no known way of teaching this. If we just look at critical theory, which is what it was born from in the 1920s in Germany by the Nazis, we could see that this is not something new and this is not something unknown. You look at anywhere in American culture where we have seen this idea of whiteness being taught, whether it be Coca-Cola, the military, or anything else that's been presented on the news, YouTube, across social media, none of this is designed to help anybody get anything done or be better or to break this division that we have. What we need to be focusing on, since equity seems to be this like magical word that everyone keeps wanting to use, equity would be if everybody is able to finally get to that same point. So why are we not using this time that we're teaching our kids to hate each other on how to get a mortgage? Or how about what credit is? Or anything like involved with normal life and how we get somewhere. This idea that we can just give some people more money or give other people, a handicap to bring everyone down to the same level, that doesn't help anyone. I want to be able to see my kids be homeowners and paying taxes and being happy and having their own kids, being able to teach their kids the values that they once instilled. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
What, Mr. Larson?
We didn't get a last name or an address, sir.
Sir, we didn't get a last name or an address?
Ford, Smith Street.
Thank you.
Jake LaCourse, 95 Glendale Road.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch. Sorry.
Jake LaCourse, 95 Glendale Road. I was kind of hoping to sneak in after you because you laid the perfect groundwork for what I want to say here. But before I get into that, I wanted to ask you guys a couple quick questions, if you don't mind. And the first of which is, I know that there's been federal funding allocated for the implementation, I should say, of this CRT. I know you're not calling it that, but for the sake of my argument, is the Attleboro school system seeking or have they received any of that funding whatsoever, whether it's for CRT, the EDI or DEI, whatever you guys are calling it? Have they received anything, or do they plan on trying to secure some of that funding?
So, sir,
do any of you know that answer?
I would suggest if you want to stick around after the meeting and give contact information, someone from the administration can get back to you with specifics. It's this is to hear your comments, complaints.
So off the top of your head, you don't know that Attleboro is seeking any of that money in a year that we've been
I don't,
told
but this
that.
isn't also a forum for a back and forth between the committee and the administration and the public. It's for you, again, to raise concerns that we can address, and we will happily, someone will happily address
Fair
them.
enough. All right, so my message is not one of division. It's actually really one of unity. And there's some of you guys that know me in here. I'm a high school graduate of here. I was a student athlete. I was a Dean's List student at Bridgewater State based on the education I received here. Okay, I love this community. I coach some of you guys as kids in sports. You know, I really try and put something back into this community, and it pains me to see not only our local newspaper, but really big media constantly trying to divide us. And I sit here and I ask the people that are in this room, do you guys really feel as divided as they show us we are on the news?
Sir, but I want to say, again, this isn't for asking questions of the committee. This is for making statements.
It is my
And not of the
personal
committee, I'm sorry,
opinion.
or asking questions of the
Sorry.
audience. It's for.
It's my personal opinion that this community is not nearly as divided as the news would portray to us. I know for a fact that I don't feel any of the tension, and I don't want to discredit anything that anybody else feels. I feel for that, but I kind of hope to gain a little more clarity on this before I said some of the things I needed to say. But quickly, while I have you, prepared a little something. So I never thought there would come a day when I had to stand before my local school committee and tell them that racial indoctrination and division of our children will not be tolerated. But after listening to Superintendent Sawyer's graduation speech just weeks ago, I can no longer say that I am surprised that I'm here. When the city's top education official feels comfortable enough to bill his own grandparents as old school racial equity resistance in front of the entire class of 21 and their parents, I find myself wondering what types of narratives are pushed when parents are out of earshot. I was born and raised in this city, as I said, student athlete of AHS, longtime volunteer coach in the city's youth sports organizations. I've been fortunate enough to watch my boys develop friendships and shared experiences via sports and school with kids of all different races and socioeconomic backgrounds. After a day of playing with their friends, they don't come home to me and say, I was playing with my black friends and my Spanish friends and my Chinese friends at school. They simply come home and tell me what a great time they had playing with their friends. I shudder at the thought that our school administrators would sell out my children's most important and mentally formative years of education for some federal grant money and a membership to the Woke Club. I would like to know how much money is the school/district trying to secure from this? What is the price tag for my child's confidence? How much money does it cost to teach children to be ashamed of their race or their family's history? And let me remind you, that's my money that the government is printing and devaluing to install this new curriculum. We are in a society where we are taxed relentlessly and increasingly, yet we have less and less say in how and when our taxes are spent. These parents are sick and tired of being ignored by the people who are paid on our dime. And just so you guys know, this is a real fact. In 2011, starting in 2011, the vast majority of the media that we see was all consolidated to about 6 major companies. And I just refuse to let these 6 companies tell me that I am a white supremacist or that I don't care about the fellow people in my community. I refuse to let these 6 companies convince me that we swim in a black sea of racism and oppression, and I'll be damned if my children are made to feel responsible for those lies. So my advice to you is, if you're so worried about school funding, don't bother wasting taxpayer money buying these books for my kids, because they will not be reading them.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the committee in open forum?
Good evening, Mr. Withers. Good evening, School Committee. My name is Kathleen DeSimone. I live at 8 Northfield Road in Attleboro. I'm here as a parent, as a resident, and as an organizing member of a group called Neighbors in Dialogue. And I wish to extend an invitation to all of you and everyone here to our ongoing community conversation about race and racism. We share the desire for unity that so many have spoken of. It is an honest conversation that we have about race and racism in our community, about the situation for all people, black, white, and otherwise. We welcome all, We have no political agenda. We have no subscribing theories. We're just Attleboro residents talking. Dissent is welcome. Disagreement is welcome. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. So I would love to see all of the school committee and everybody here join us when we reconvene in the fall. I think we're shooting for September. To continue the discussion, because whether we agree or disagree, I think it's imperative as citizens that we keep talking. Because the further away we get from each other, we're never going to solve it. And I may not agree with what some of you said here, but I respect the fact that you came and you spoke your truth, and you are welcome to do so at our group. Let's talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's called Neighbors in Dialogue. We're on Facebook. Oh, you're welcome.
My name is Jim Poor, 38 Derrick Drive. I have, with all due respect to Ms. DeSimone, that group you're just talking about is extreme left. It hasn't even been communicated at all. Very little. It was sent in a flyer that I think every parent probably, you got to scroll through it with their thumb. Every organization in there is extreme left. So I respect the fact that, we want to have dialogue, but this is, I think, the first time that many people have heard of it. And I'm glad you're at least saying it, because now at least you're getting the word out. So I appreciate that. One other question I have, a couple questions. My opinion, EDI, CRT, it's the same thing. That really isn't the argument. The EDI is coming in. It's already been in. It's been admitted by the school committee. I don't understand why the parents didn't really know about this. It was never brought up, maybe brought up a minute or two in one of the meetings. Again, that neighborhood dialogue thing, nobody really knew. And I just think that's poor communication. And my opinion, and this is my opinion, I'm welcome to express it, I think that it was kind of being blown off until the end of the school year. And then you guys could have just wiped your hands with it and started the school year in September and said, oh, it's already in, there's nothing we can do. That's my opinion. I don't understand why it wasn't communicated at all. And this is why I think COVID had something to do with it. I don't think parents were paying a lot of attention. I got 3 little ones in the school system. I know obviously many people here do. You had to balance your home life. People had to work from home. And I think that was part of it. One other thing I want to mention too is some of these book listings that have come out, in my opinion, are absolutely atrocious. Attleboro Public Library is doing them. I know it isn't necessarily with the schools. I know the school signs off on some of them. The one that came out I think it was last June.
Mr. Poor, you're speaking to the school committee about the school department. You're not speaking about the library. We're happy to hear complaints about your feelings on CRT in the schools or DEI, but again, speaking at a school committee meeting about what's going on with the library.
No, I understand that, but my point is the school committee does work with the library, and they're in that neighborhood dialogue group. They're all there, and many of the books that the public library has been a reading list were extremely far left. And I understand maybe a couple books, I get that, but anyway, my biggest concern, I think, is the lack of communication. I think, and I don't think it's been, I think COVID was a big part of it, but I think that's my main issue. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Can everyone hear me? I don't know how far my voice can carry. A little more? Okay. Is this good? Okay. Sorry about that. My name is Danielle China Bone. I live at 36 Hannish Road in Attleboro, Massachusetts. I had a question, actually. For DEI, is that a class or is that a training for staff and faculty? That's my first question.
It's professional development for staff and faculty.
Okay, so it's for staff and faculty. So it's not going to be implemented in a specific class for students of any age or any school, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so there's going to be no history books that teach DEI, correct? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I had that quick understanding because I hear a lot of reference to history books and the children, and I'm a parent myself. So I just wanted to make sure that I had that understanding, and maybe for anyone else who had that same question. Also, I wanted to know, is this professional development for teachers of, well, faculty and staff of all grade range? Yes. So including the elementary schools, which is the lowest grade that we can go. Okay, awesome. I think that that is personally awesome. Thank you for answering all my questions. A comment to follow up. I've lived in Attleboro my whole life. I was born and raised here. My first introduction with racism was in elementary school, and it never stopped from there. So quite frankly, I'm very happy, and I thank the school committee for putting this professional development in place to make sure, or at least to start, that my children, who hopefully will come through the same public school system, will not have the same story as me. While they won't be being taught anything against my teachings at home, because there's not gonna be a class, however, I'd like to know that the staff and faculty will be supporting my child, be supporting the fact that they always have inclusion and equity and have pride and allyship with the people who sit next to them. Someone who was raised in Attleboro myself, a lot of my friends, as multiple people have said here, were of different race, different background, different gender, different language. We had a rainbow here. However, that rainbow was never truly respected nor uplifted. So I wanted to take a moment to ask my questions as a parent, also as a community member, but also as someone who has lived here my whole life. I did want to say thank you for kind of ensuring me that the generations behind me might not have the same story that I have. Maybe one of more inclusion, maybe one of more security, maybe one of more protection in the community that they grow up in, whether or not they stay here like I did or they move on somewhere else. I took a lot of things that I learned in Attleboro and I brought it with me to college. I brought it with me to church half the time, and I continue to bring it with me. So I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for all of your efforts, and thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Todd McGee, and address is 48 Farmers Lane. I appreciate everyone's comments tonight, and I think really what needs to be said is we need to be careful about the misinformation that we can find on the internet. I think we need to be careful about certain categories and certain curriculum or theory is being presented in one lump basket. I think that if we begin to understand that as all of us as parents or guardians, whatever your situation is, it is indeed the conversations that we need to have. It's indeed where we find common ground with each other, with our goals, our aspirations, how we provide for our families, than the differences that we don't have. So I think we have more in common than not, and it takes dialogue for us to get there. If we're not talking, the us against them is going to continue. We can't have that. And yes, brother, when you say the things that are missing in the school are foundation with things not being placed, we've moved away from God's protection over our schools. We've moved away from these different things in our lives. And so I want to start and go back and thank the committee for the way the meeting's starting off by just clearing the air and bringing clarity to where the school department is. What's being taught, what's a level of professional development versus what's actually being taught in the classroom. So I think we need to be careful about the misinformation. We need to be careful about getting caught up in different things. And personally, I'm tired of the us against them. We're tax-paying parents, tax-paying residents, homeowners, and that's where we need to be able to find common ground on. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the committee?
My name's Mark Connors. I live at 58 Stanley Street in Attleboro. I wanted to take a moment to thank
the members of our educational community in the school system for their efforts to achieve the objective that they're supposed to for our students, which is to teach them how to think, how to examine things from different perspectives, to challenge them in ways they have never been challenged before or experienced before. It means that they're going to be pushed on stuff that may not be comfortable. It means that they may not be pushed on stuff that they hear at home. Topics like race, religion, economic status, political beliefs, etc., are part of society. You don't actually avoid talking about them. You present them. You discuss them. You dig deeper into them. And hopefully you learn from them. I can tell you with certainty that our educators in this community strive to deliver that. And I wanted to go ahead and say I appreciate the fact that that is your mission, that you take it seriously, and that you're helping to present or create critical thinkers with critical thought as the basis for how they come to a conclusion or derive a perspective on an item that takes place or an issue in society. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? I'm sorry, ma'am. Open forum, you only get one opportunity to speak. It's a rule of open forum. Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to address the committee?
Good evening. My name is Greg Pingerle. I live at 17 Fuller Road, Attleboro. I came here just to express some support for the school committee. I was asked to attend by my wife. She informed me that CRT was coming to the schools and we needed to address it. So not knowing exactly what CRT was, I looked it up, and it doesn't sound like anything that's going on here. DEI is what I understand is professional development for the teachers and the faculty. And CRT is critical race theory, which I looked up, and unless they started teaching law school to my elementary kids, I don't think I have to worry about it anytime soon. So thank you for including diversity. So I full disclosure, I work for Walmart, not the Attleboro Walmart, so do not come to me with your issues about getting any kind of products. I can't help you, all right? But I do supervise a store, and I have about 174 people that I'm directly responsible for. I can tell you that diversity, equity, and inclusion helps in situations where you have large groups of diverse population. All right, so I don't have any issue with it. CRT, so I guess I'll put my resume out there a little bit. I spent 15 years in the National Guard. I've been to Bosnia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. I was an 11 Bravo, a grunt, so I have done some things in my life that allow me to say that I have done things for this country. And I would just like to say that I don't fear critical race theory or any examination of my country, because I know it's a great country, but I also know we've made some mistakes in the past, so we can move forward from it, but you're never going to move forward if you don't examine it. Okay, so thank you again, guys. I just want us to show support to the school committee and the decisions you're making here.
Thank you. Is there anyone? All right. I'm going to go ahead and close open forum. Is there any other issue before the school committee tonight? Ma'am, I'm sorry. You had your opportunity to speak, and that opportunity has passed. And if you have a question, you can reach out to us. All right. I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye.